The Columbia Association Directors to order. Good evening. I'm Eric Greenberg, Vice Chair of the FY24 CA Board of Directors. In Andy Stack's absence, I will chair tonight's meeting. Depending upon internet access, Andy might participate remotely. Please remember that this meeting is being live streamed. You can find the agendas and background materials for all this evening's meetings on the CA Board of Directors webpage. Links to these documents can also be found in the description section of our YouTube live stream for those that are watching the meeting there. If you are virtual, please mute your microphones unless speaking. If you're in the room, please ensure that your cell phones are silenced. Raise your hand to speak and I'll record the names in the order in which I see them. If you are virtual, please use the chat feature. Before we move to the meeting, I'll introduce each item on the agenda. Before a vote is taken, I'll restate a motion as well as who motioned it and seconded. If at any point you have trouble hearing me or any other member present, please say so. Tonight's timekeeper is Alan Klein. I'll now call the roll. Sky?
Here.
Reg?
Here.
Lynn?
Here.
Karen?
Here.
Chris?
Here.
Alan?
Here.
Dennis?
Here.
Keith?
Here.
Andy? Bill? And I am here. Announcements of closed special meetings held or to be held. The Architectural Review Committee held a closed meeting on May 8th, 2023 at 1:07 p.m. at CA headquarters. Committee members present were Deb Bach, Carolyn Payton, Karina Keiko, Eileen McNamara, and Carol McPhee. The closed meeting was authorized under Maryland Homeowners Association Act, Maryland Code Real Property, Section 11B-11144, consultation with staff, personnel, consultants, attorneys, board members, or other persons in connection with pending or potential litigation on or other legal matters. CA's Board of Directors held a closed meeting at CA headquarters on May 25th at 6:30. Members participating were Scott Anderson, Reg Avery, Lynn Egan, Karen Emery, Chris Fuchs, Eric Greenberg, Alan Klein, Keith O'Neill. The vote to close the meeting was 8-0. Members present were Anderson, Avery, Egan, Emery, Fuchs, Greenberg, Klein, and O'Neill. Voting for, none. And Dennis Matty was also present at the meeting. Members voting for were all the members present, no abstentions or people voting against closing. The closed meeting was authorized under Maryland Homeowners Act, Maryland Code Real Property, Section 11B-11143, consultation with legal counsel or legal matters. Approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Reg moves, Keith seconds. Is there any objections to the agenda? Seeing no objections, the agenda is moved as stated. We will now move on to resident speak out. I will call on you one by one in the order which you signed up. Individuals have 3 minutes for comments. Anyone representing an organization is allotted 5 minutes. Following remarks, the board will have a chance to ask questions. Please mute your microphones when you are not speaking. Our first resident is Sharon Boyes, representing Protect Our Streams. Sharon? Sharon, are you out there? I will circle back. Next, we have Robert Dover. Robert, are you out there?
I am, thanks.
Hi, Robert.
In my remarks 2 weeks ago, I observed that the Elkhorn Branch Prospectus made false claims about the benefits of the project while ignoring all of the more recent science that offers contrary opinions. Tonight, I'll concentrate my remarks on the environmental justice violations of the project, entirely based on statements made by WSSI in their own documents. What I found in my review is that WSSI changes their claims about residential impacts depending on which residents they're talking about. The prospectus states that there are minority and low-income communities adjacent to the project. I agree. There are 7 multifamily housing complexes, one of which is owned and operated as low-income housing by the Howard County Housing Commission. The prospectus also acknowledges that the impacts of the project will fall disproportionately on those communities. Again, I agree. Where we differ is that the prospectus claims that all of these disproportionate impacts are somehow beneficial to those communities. It makes ridiculous claims like the project will provide educational opportunities that do not currently exist for the children. Conveniently, the prospectus fails to mention that these communities would also be subjected to adverse impacts from construction, removal of trees, increased potential for flooding, etc. Then, in the April letter discussing REACH 1, WSSI makes claims that are the exact opposite. When talking about the disadvantaged communities in the prospectus, they claim that all residential impacts are beneficial. Then when talking about REACH 1 in the April letter, they claim that all the residential impacts are adverse. REACH 1 is one of the most affluent areas of Columbia. WSSI doesn't mention that the residents of REACH 1 will now be missing out on all the great benefits mentioned in the prospectus. Instead, it states that the negative impacts of construction may not be palatable to REACH 1 residents. This is a major violation of the very core of environmental justice. You had a project that extended the whole length of the stream and pretty evenly affected both the affluent and the lower income neighborhoods. Then you removed the affluent neighborhood and said in writing that you were removing it because the residents there might not like it, ignoring the fact that the residents in the disadvantaged communities might not like it either. So I think you need to look at the environmental justice implications of canceling part of the project because of adverse residential impacts in the affluent area while ignoring the exact same impacts in a disadvantaged neighborhood. I will be providing these observations to you in writing. I've also provided them to MDE, the Corps of Engineers, the Maryland Commission on Environmental Justice and Sustainable Communities, and the 7 multifamily housing communities that are affected. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Richard Bannister. Richard?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yep. Good evening. The Columbia Association Watershed Advisory Committee. I'm sorry, the clock isn't running properly here. Good evening. The Columbia Association Watershed Advisory Committee has become problematic, and I wonder if you can tell me if they're representing the CA Board's values. For instance, during the May 11th Speak Out, the WAC chair, Deborah Wesner, using misquotes and false testimony, attempted to dismiss a resident's concerns and abilities. That resident just happens to be my wife. First, to quote Deborah Wesner, the WAC chair, in one such session, a resident expressed great concern about the plan because it included REACH 1, an area that has pathways that are near Phelps Luck Elementary School. The resident was concerned that dangerous equipment might be used there and that the equipment and the work was being done might pose a danger to children who use those pathways. Wrong. My wife didn't state that the area has pathways near Phelps Luck Elementary School. She stated that the construction entrance was right next to Phelps Luck Elementary School. Incidentally, the idea to place it there was fully supported by the WAC. Again, to quote, unfortunately, the resident was unaware that REACH 1 had already been removed from the prospectus plan in April of this year. That announcement was made at a previous board meeting and is clearly shown in version 2 of the project flowchart, which is available on the board's website. Close quote. Wrong. The announcement was made by Dennis Maddy at the end of the April 13th board meeting after Deborah Wesner herself had spoken, seemingly unaware that REACH 1 had been removed, after my wife had spoken of her concerns. Not at a previous board meeting, but later at the end of that meeting. The WAC chair claimed the removal of REACH 1 is clearly shown on version 2 of the project flowchart on the board website. Wrong again. It isn't. It's not on the flowchart, which incidentally was in the packet for that very same meeting. It's item 5A, if anyone wants to check. So we have an advisory committee that doesn't even seem to understand the sequence of events in which the WAC chair herself was present, that is unable to read and understand their own documents, and it's already been pointed out numerous times, don't seem to understand or be up to date on the science. They're apparently not fulfilling their duties. The WAC is formed under a charter. However, that charter doesn't contain a paragraph permitting the WAC to use resident speak out or have one allowing the WAC to make things up. What it does have, however, is under Section 5 is the paragraph, quote, members may be removed from the committee for not fulfilling their duties or failing to adhere to Columbia Association Board values or otherwise at the discretion of the CA Board. The WAC is the board's responsibility, and clearly you have the power to remove members. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Reg.
Hey, good evening, Richard. Reg.
Hey, Reg.
Hey.
question for you. You mentioned the construction site right by the school. Do you happen to know how many vehicles, estimated vehicles, construction vehicles that would be passing by and by the school? And if you happen to know, what times, and I know it's just you're estimating, but give it a shot.
I mean, all I can say is there's one narrow street that leads to that school, and it's and the idea was to put a construction entrance right next to the school, and they would have to use the school road. They'd have to go around the school circle where the school buses go. I have no idea how much materials they were going to be taking out or putting in. It's a moot point right now because they have removed Reach 1. My point was really that they were using false testimony to basically go after the testimony of my wife, and I don't even understand what the WAC is doing, giving testimony at a CA meeting, because they are CA. They represent Columbia Association. They represent you, the board. So in other words, it's really you, the board, are making false testimony about my wife. And I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I really don't understand. This board, right, has led, this Water Advisory Committee has led Columbia down a rabbit hole. And they've had to remove Reach 1 because it was not viable. And they've been advising, yes, we support it. The company said, yes, we can do it. And then the company says, oh, no, we can't do it. So I don't know. I really don't understand what CA is. I mean, it's just a mess, isn't it? The Lake Alcorn project is a mess. And the vendor has not come forward with a new proposal yet. I mean, how long is it going to take? What's the matter? What's the holdup?
Any further questions? Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Sue Bannister. Sue?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
I'm Sue Bannister from High Tor Hill in Long Reach, and congratulations to the new board. There's a saying, you can't wake up someone who is pretending to be asleep. For about a year and a half now, a growing number of residents have been pushing CA for answers to the same questions about the Lake Elkhorn project. What are the risks to our environment and community? What is the likelihood of success or failure? What are the consequences of failure? No one from CA or the vendor has yet provided straight answers to these seemingly straightforward questions. Do they really not know the answers, or are they pretending? It's pretty easy to find answers by Googling stream restoration or stream channel engineering processes along with the word risk, failure, or community objections. There's a lot there. It may be tempting to only present a bright side, but unwillingness to entertain negative aspects and possibilities is known as denial. And denial has significant consequences when used by those entrusted to provide reliable information to our communities. CA's Watershed Advisory Committee's repeated presence at Resident Speak Out has been peculiar. Their charter lists a goal to foster an informed public by encouraging resident feedback, assessments, and ideas. This would seem to make them allies with residents voicing their legitimate concerns about watershed projects. Not so. WAC has taken a different direction, an adversarial one. As a resident with deep concerns about the processes to be used for the Lake Elkhorn project, I heard these concerns diminished and dismissed inaccurately, as my husband pointed out, by the chair of WAC. The WAC chair told us their committee is full of experts. Sounds good, but only the chair is listed on CA's webpage. The names of members are not there, and there are no credentials to confirm. Maybe their membership is secret. The 11 members are appointed in some fashion to advise the board, yet the chair uses her 5 minutes at Resident Speak Out to discourage residents who disagree with the committee. This is very disturbing on a number of levels. The chair has made it clear that her committee supports the Lake Elkhorn project and has little interest in information from residents, even experts, who disagree with them. I guess the committee would rather give the board bad advice than bad news. In spite of all this, High Tor Hill to Jackson Pond, Reach 1, has been removed and saved from, among many other impacts, a bulldozer construction entrance next to Phelps Luck Elementary. But circling back to something Bill Santos asked me many months ago about the neighborhoods beyond my Reach One backyard, there are 4 more neighborhoods, reaches of forests and streams, including 12 more heavy vehicle construction entrances in communities from Tamar Drive and Jeffers Hill to Sewell's Orchard Drive and into the village
you.
of Owen Brown and Lake Elkhorn.
Thank you. Can you make a concluding statement?
Whose equally treasured open space is at risk of serious negative impacts from the project. We won't be sleeping yet.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Just one.
Reg.
Okay. Hi, Sue.
How
Uh,
you doing, Reg?
Good. A question for you. You mentioned risks, and you said that we could look it
Yeah.
up in the website, but just real short, what type of risks are we talking about?
Well, I think that the main risk for most, there's actually a lot of risks. In fact, they're pointed out by the Maryland Department of the Environment and the Office of the Army Corps of Engineers. But removal of trees of all sizes is a big risk, and it's going to happen. There's no way to do this without that. Destruction of trees inadvertently and as a consequential of bringing heavy equipment into a stream bed area is not just a risk, but a likelihood. The likelihood of failure in impervious areas of impervious surface like suburban and urban areas is very high. The likelihood of success, as Sarah Kellett pointed out last week, is about 13%. That's a very low rate. The other question we haven't got answered is Longfellow considered a failure or a success? Now ask the community and they consider it a failure. Ask the Watershed Committee and I don't know what they consider it. But if you go over there, you can see where it has failed in many, many instances. And failure means not just that these trees are down and there's just these little switches in there, but also that a whole ecosystem has been destroyed. Their stream is dead. There's no life in it. In many parts of it, there's flocculate, there's algae, there's all kinds of things. And the benefits have not ensued because Wild Lake still has to be dredged. It's a very expensive failure, these failures. They blow out the rocks that they pile in there, heat the stream up so the stream gets warm, and which is the worst thing that can happen to stream because it kills everything in it. The wonderful shaded paths that we walk down won't be shaded anymore or will be minimally shaded. The canopy won't be there because canopy means a diversity of trees, small, medium, large, newly growing and old with lots of canopy. The roots won't be there to hold the soils down the sides. Instead, they'll pile these big boulders that are gray and white and that reflect heat into the water and not the trees that protect the stream from heat. These are just some of the risks that not only destroy what the natural stream is capable of healing, but they destroy the quality of life for residents who love their trees, love their woods, love their forests and their paths and their stream. So, and the wildlife disappears, or it's very minimal. It minimizes. Bird watchers, photographers. I can't tell you the number of people that have talked to us and about the things that they don't want to lose. And unfortunately, it will be a very different picture if this project goes through all the way down from High Tor Hill, which is now out from Tamar Drive-In to Lake Elkhorn.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Alan?
So at the top of your statement, you mentioned 3 questions. I don't type fast. Could you just repeat the questions?
What are the risks to the environment and our community? And as I answered to Reg, there are a number of them.
I don't want to take the time with the answer. I just want the question.
Yeah. What are the risks to our environment and community? What is the likelihood of success or failure? What are the consequences of failure?
Thank you.
And then as an aside, is Longfellow considered a failure or a success? That was just my own personal interest because I haven't heard anybody call it from CA call it a failure, but I've heard plenty of people in the community call it a failure. So I don't know who people are talking to in the Watershed Committee or where they're from or what their expertise is or where they live, but they don't have correct information about this project and they could get it easily.
Any other questions? Karen?
Yeah, just term of interest here, Susan, isn't it true that the area where they're talking about doing the work, the Lake Elkhorn, that stretch of territory is the longest contiguous songbird habitat in this part of Maryland?
I believe this is what the Fish and Wildlife has reported, that it's an ornithological delight for everyone, and it is contiguous area for songbirds and migrating birds and birds of all kinds that bird lovers love it, put it that way.
Thank you.
So yes, I believe that's correct.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Susan Krabbe.
Thank you.
So good evening, I'm Susan Krabbe. I work on CA annual charge paying property. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to our community and especially to the Columbia Association team members. Being present in person at this meeting due to my position, I will not be virtual for this opportunity. At the May 11, 2023 CA board meetings, comments were made during resident speak out and board discussion, urging the CA board to be wary in their interactions with CA staff, expressing concern about the chair-CEO relationship becoming too close and describing CA staff as providing self-serving and inaccurate advice. In general, implying that CA staff are self-serving, incompetent, and untrustworthy. I did not speak up that evening to correct these misstatements about our team, and so I'm doing that tonight. For the public record and the good reputation of the CA team, based on my 25 years of service as part of this community, I can attest to the fact that the CA staff is trustworthy and competent. No wariness on the part of the board is warranted. The CA team consistently behaves with the highest ethical standards, the utmost professionalism, and a demonstrated commitment to excellence in community service that have become examples to other organizations in Howard County and beyond, as evidenced by numerous awards, requests for staff participation in events and activities, CA staff consultation, and more. The excellence and trustworthiness of the CA team were very clearly demonstrated last year when the CA board experienced the resignations of 4 board members, including the president CEO, as well as the general counsel, and my own unwillingness to serve as interim president and CEO. The corresponding negative regional media attention drove reputational harm that continues to have negative consequences. Despite the behavior of last year's board and the resulting pain experienced by the CA team, our amazing team delivered outstanding services and programs to our community. Program participation, facility visits, and memberships increased over the prior year. The expanded Lakefront Live far surpassed previous years. Village buildings were improved, the open space never looked better, and CA's finances were strengthened. The team streamlined numerous processes behind the scenes to better serve the community. Community members who shared that they had never felt included in this community responded with enthusiasm to our invitations to join with us in these wonderful experiences. None of this could have happened under those circumstances without an excellent, professional, trustworthy staff team, who, by the way, may also be your neighbors and voters. So CA team members, I know what you heard 2 weeks ago, but you know better than that, and I believe the community knows better than that. You are trustworthy, reliable, and excellent, and you are CA in Columbia. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Colin?
Yeah, Susan, I appreciate you speaking up on behalf of the staff. You talked about reputational harm that continues to this day. Could you say a couple words about what that looks like?
It's impacting some vendor response to requests for proposals, causing additional questions. It's created a multiple feedback loop on insurance applications. It has raised issues related to consulting engagements. So there are numerous examples that I experience every day.
Thank you. Any further questions? Reg?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait. Oh,
What was the?
Dennis,
I'll let Chris, then Reg.
Yeah, let
Chris.
Sorry, just it was a follow-on to the previous question. What was the impetus for those negative consequences, Susan?
The negative media attention that we received at the regional level all last year.
Okay, thank you. That was all.
Reg?
Okay. Susan, of course, I'm just coming back on the board, but I've always known the staff, and yourself included, and Dennis, to be top notch, always willing to help us provide whatever service. And I think the community has it's kind of spoken on what they want and how they want things to run, and we certainly can't afford as a group to be divided. We need to be working together, as I think that's what all of us really want. I'm saddened by the thought that, someone would say that that CA staff was incompetent. That clearly is not how I feel. I definitely do not feel that the CA board is I'm just not board, but the staff is incompetent. I think, far from it. I think you guys have given so much. I know, again, when I was on the board previously, if I asked for something, you got it for me. You didn't complain. You did it as I asked. If I was looking for information, whatever it was, you took care of me. So I hope going forward that we as a board and the staff will come together for the purpose of building up CA and its residents and making this a wonderful place to live. That's all I have.
Me too. Thank you.
Any last questions? Thank you. I will circle back to the beginning. Sharon, are you out there? Nope. That concludes resident speak out for tonight's meetings. To limit interruptions during board discussion and voting, all members of the general public will now be returned to the audience. This means you'll no longer be able to show your camera or unmute your audio, but you're more than welcome to stay on as an attendee to watch the remainder of this evening's meeting. You can also watch a live stream on the CA Livestream YouTube page. Thank you so much for your participation tonight. I'll now take a moment to allow staff to make this transition.
I had just a point. I had asked staff about the transition. The transition takes all of 10 seconds.
Okay, that's fine.
I just for the sake of time. And
I'll just wait the 10 seconds.
It's when everyone goes to
Okay. Anyway, next we have the consent agenda. Hearing no objections to the RFP for the President CEO search and receiving no comments on the draft minutes on the April 20, 2023 closed Board of Directors meetings, these two items are approved by consent.
Question.
Yes.
As far as the search for the president goes, the president resigned in January, and I haven't heard of any progress being made from January until now. Has the previous board decided not to start the search until the new board was seated, or?
Well, we just had the latest progress where the RFP is approved.
So if I can say, the previous board did decide to wait until the new board was seated. That was a conscious decision on their part. So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next we go to board votes. The one item on the agenda today is the resolution for the increase in the extension of the line of credit.
I'd like to make a motion.
Actually, so first we got it. Let me see here. First, the chair moves to hold a vote to suspend the three readings rule in order to actually vote on this. So before we actually begin the discussion,
Second.
Okay, we got a second. So a little background material for new board members. So this being a significant resolution that affects our line of credit, our policies basically state that there needs to be 3 meetings in order to vote. This is actually the first meeting or the first reading of this particular item. So what needs to happen here is that in order to vote on this resolution, the board will need to actually suspend the 3-meeting rule. So for everybody's information, this requires a 2/3 vote of the entire board. So we need for this motion to pass. This requires 7 affirmative votes. So the motion, the chair moves to hold the vote to suspend 3-meeting rule in order to vote on the resolution to increase and extend the line of credit, and it was seconded by Keith. So is there any discussion on the motion? Alan?
2 questions, and I'm not sure who to direct them to. Maybe it's you, Susan, but why is it that we didn't have previous meetings to talk about this, and what would be the impact of waiting 4 weeks to make this decision?
So because there are a couple reasons. So I should have started it earlier, 3 reasons. Secondly, if we were only going to extend it, we don't need a board resolution, and for some period of time, we thought we were only going to extend it. And then third, we have been waiting for feedback from the bank that has taken quite a lot of time. I just really got that definitive feedback this week because of all of the LIBOR to SOFR work that they're doing.
So what would be the impact if?
Well, it expires June 1st. The board has agreed to extend it as is and already provided that information. So it just would be the risk of them changing their mind and not approving the $30 million versus the 20.
Thank you.
So any further questions on the motion?
Yeah, I just want clarification. You said 2/3 of the members, not 2/3 of the members voting.
Correct. So I said 2/3. So it's 2/3 of all the members.
Correct. That's how it's worded.
So that's how it's worded in our policy. Right. So that requires 7 votes. So it's not 2/3 of the members here. Reg.
So, okay, so I just heard that it's going from 20 to 30. Is there anything else that we're not privy to for those of us that are new to the board?
I'll let Susan.
Is that relevant to this motion, or would it be relevant to the motion as we talk?
Yeah, there'll be another motion to actually vote to actually increase the. There'll be a second motion. Once we pass this motion, there'll be a second motion to actually vote on increasing it.
This is so I'll hold my question until
that's fair.
Until the time. Thank you, Alan.
So any further questions? So I do have just a general question for the board members. So I realize a lot of people are new, and this particular resolution has only had one reading. So the key thing that I'd like you to ask yourself is, do you feel like you've had enough time to process this to vote on it? So why
do we need an increase in credit, and why are we asking for an extension?
Do you need that for this vote, or is that part of the discussion for the? I'm happy to answer that.
Well, you can answer that now.
Okay, so Columbia Association always has a line of credit. Right. So they are, in the past, they were usually just 1 year. So we had a 3-year, we have a new lender in June of 2020, and it was a 3-year transaction, and it expires. So in order to provide the assurance of working capital in periods when the cash is low or reduced or not coming in from operations, it's just a prudent course of business, and one that CA and other organizations rely on.
So this is just a renewal of something that already exists?
Correct.
And it's a safety measure?
Right. Okay. And you asked another question. You had a 2-part question there, Karen. Why is 20 to 30?
Yeah.
Because the cash forecast updated recently shows that at the very end of that 3-year period, we may need more than $20 million. And it's a factor of we've projected the potential of increasing the capital budgets for the next couple years by $1 million each year. We projected adding, and this is all, projections that would be subject to board discussion and vote, adding additional funds to the emergency cash reserves, and just the general pace of spending and revenue in that summer month. So our cash flow is very seasonal. Most of the cash comes in July and August with the annual charge, and is generally spent through the year. By the time we get to June, which is a heavy spending period because that's when our activities are, we are traditionally short on cash, and this is a stopgap measure. Also, I think in that June, is it May or June of 2026, there's a 3-pay period month. So it's an additional cash challenge for that period, just that particular period of time. But then we'll pay it all off in July when the annual charge comes in.
So given
it's a revolving line of credit.
So given that the discussion sort of flowed to basically both motions, what I'd like to do is have the discussion on either motion. So if you want to ask questions regarding the extension, we should have that discussion now. So, Raj.
So I guess my biggest concern is I come into the meeting and then we're told, hey, we need to go vote for this. And then it's the first time I'm hearing about this and seeing it. And my initial reaction is, I'm not going to vote for this because you're asking me to look at something that I'm just now looking at. The answer is no. But I'm trying to hear, what's going on, which Susan made some good points. But I hope that we never do this again because I really don't like being told, we need to vote for this, yes or no, and this is the first time we're hearing about it.
And that's my responsibility, Reg. That's me not getting faster on this and pressuring the bank more quickly.
Any further questions?
Well, I mean, in Susan's defense, I mean, can you elaborate a little bit on the LIBOR to SOFR change and why that might have caused a delay? I think a lot of people might not understand that.
No question that that's what they're telling us has caused the delay. So,
I mean, I think it is believable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So the LIBOR, which is a longstanding 40-year benchmark for determining interest rates, was ended for new credit effective January 2022, and then for existing credit had to be sunset as well. So the existing line of credit from June of 2020 had a LIBOR benchmark for the interest rate. It was LIBOR plus 115 basis points. So we had to replace LIBOR with SOFR, which is the secured overnight finance rate. And it's a different benchmark, different source, and that's now the new standard LIBOR replacement. So that has to be done for all the bank's credit that's LIBOR based. In this period of time, and we already did that. We did that last month, so we did get that taken care of.
So how do the terms, specifically the interest rates of this proposal, compare to the previous line of credit?
So it's identical, except the benchmark is different. So the spread is the same. It's the new benchmark plus 115 basis points, which is what it was under the old line.
And the second question I have is the $30 million. Does that only, the way I read it, does that only apply to the third year?
That's when we think we'll need it. Only in the third year, at the end of the third year. Mm-hmm. And as I noted, we will pay it off in a couple months after that with the annual charge revenue.
I think it's going to be available from year one.
It'll be available,
because it's a 3-year term.
Right.
A 3-year term.
I misread it. I thought it was only 2020 and then
so we are
jumps to 30.
going to change the structure so that there's a tiered schedule so that we don't have to pay so much unused commitment fee, but it will be $30 million at the end.
So I guess my other question, given that we have the reserve funds and given that we haven't tapped the line of credit recently, when was the last time we tapped the line of credit?
We were in it in March of 2020.
So, and that was obviously some pretty difficult times from a...
Well, the balance on the line at the shutdown was about $11 million, if I remember correctly. So it was, and that was before we were shut down, so that was not...
So I guess the question I have is, we haven't been using it now. We're building up these emergency cash reserves. Why, and we're continuing to build up these cash reserves. Certainly we allocate $3 million for the cash reserves for this fiscal year in addition to the $3 million we allocated in April. Given that, why would we be tapping into our line of credit, which would be at about 6% interest, versus just using our cash reserves?
Because the cash reserves are supposed to be emergency cash reserves, and the policy was, the board approved, was that they would not be used for routine working capital needs.
Any further questions?
Yeah, my last one. So this is, would say it's a 3-year term?
It is.
So we don't have to do this again for another 3 years?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Hypothetically, if we didn't do this, what would happen?
If we didn't do it at all?
Or if we delayed the vote?
Delayed the vote, I think someone else asked that earlier, and I said that, so the bank has approved the extension for $20 million for the next 3 years. So that would be in place, and we would go ahead and get those, probably get those documents drafted. And then the risk is that they will not, that they would change their mind. We've already talked to them about, we wouldn't come to you if we couldn't get $30 million. So we've already talked to them about that. They agree. they've agreed in principle. The risk is that they would change their mind and we would not have that. I think that's the only other,
If we delayed,
right?
Or change the terms, right?
change the
Because they
terms.
haven't locked in the terms for the additional funds.
It's to be at the same term, that same rate.
But they could,
They
if we
could change
didn't,
it.
they could
That's,
change
if
it.
it's not done, they can change anything, right? Yeah.
You've got a lot of interest rate risk right now. Excuse me, not that they would do this, but, sorry, allergies. A lot of interest rate risk now, especially with a lot of the things that the Fed is doing at this point. So we're sort of in somewhat unprecedented times in terms of what may happen with responses to interest rates. So I don't know if that's going to be a risk or not, but.
Well, it's a risk anyway, because keep in mind, this is a variable rate loan, so it fluctuates according to the SOFR. So if the rates go up, the SOFR, part of it's going to go up. So when we're talking SOFR plus 115 basis points, the SOFR rate's roughly about 5% these days, last I checked. So you add 115 basis points to that, you're at 6% today, if you were to take out the loan today. But I'm not sure how often it recomputes, but
If they don't change the spread.
if they don't change the spread. But the loan itself is a continually adjusting rate. So as the SOFR bounces around, the interest rate that gets computed each month, I suppose, would also be bouncing around.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
so the interest rate risk you're talking about is already built into the fact that it's a variable line of credit.
No, it's not, because the spread can change, and that's the amount. The SOFR is something that's used standardly across the board. In this transition from LIBOR to SOFR, the piece that's negotiable and that could change, not saying that they would based upon relationship or anything like that, is the 115 basis points that's being discussed. So I understand variable rates and how the SOFR work, but there is change that can happen.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say we're out of time.
Okay.
Perfect.
I just, if I may, I just would ask Lynn, is there any comments that you would want to make or clarify, as our treasurer?
Just to respond to the question of why now versus waiting, the banking environment can change at any time. And we saw the worst of that when the pandemic hit and the banking relationship we'd had with Bank of America was suddenly dissolved. So I wouldn't recommend waiting on this. This is something, if you look at our history, we only use the line of credit in the months basically from, at the worst case, really from November until June, and then our annual charge comes in and we pay the line of credit off. It's meant to be a temporary operating cash source. If we didn't increase it from the 20 million, I think the board would surely have to look at limiting the capital budget. What we've done is we've anticipated the ability to increase slightly the capital budget during this 3-year term. And so it is just a forecast. It has a variety of assumptions that we make so to give the board and CA flexibility in its capital improvement plans, as well as program offerings. So, but it's the bank environment that can change on us at any minute. And I think Keith's point is very valid that there are a lot of issues right now, from the debt ceiling to the unpredictable interest rate hikes, that introduce some element of risk with respect to this continuing availability of the line.
Alan.
Yeah. I think you've already said this, but I just want to get a definitive answer on this. And sort of speaks, I think, for me to why I think I'm more comfortable, Reg, for voting on this. This is simply a matter of amount. This is you're going to use this line of credit in the same way you've used it in the past. There's no change of policy. It's just a recognition that amounts are different.
That's correct.
I actually do have two questions. So you mentioned that the biggest driver is the increase in capital in the capital budget, so last couple of years, the capital budget's been at $11 million. Where do you see the capital budget going in the next 3 years?
So it's not the biggest driver, but it's one driver, and we just benchmarked it at 12, which is a 9% increase for the next 2 years.
So it'd go from 11 to 12.
And this, again, it's just a projection to make sure that we could provide for that if the board so chose.
The other question I have is, given that we're building up a fairly large capital reserve, or a rainy day fund or a cash reserve, could we have a policy to borrow against that reserve at a lower interest rate than what we'd get from a bank? Kind of like borrowing against your 401k plan?
So we could certainly do that. I wouldn't advise it. The cash reserves is not even it's still at not even half of what the determined level of reserve would be appropriate for a Columbia Association. And one of the reasons that was so traumatic to the organization and in the shutdown in March of 2020 is we had no cash, and we had the line of credit at a balance, and the banking relationship, as Lynn said, just completely collapsed. So sure, we could do that. The board could make that kind of policy, but I don't understand why you would, honestly.
My theory would be saving 6% interest, but any other questions?
I think my only comment generally is, I would generally support something like this because I think it's standard practice, but the other piece that we have to look at is options. If we decided down the road as part of the budgeting process to go ahead and leverage our cash reserve in some other way, I think we can do that. But if we limit ourselves to only doing one or the other, then we've limited our options. So my recommendation would be to allow us the full flexibility, and then to explore things like how do we want to use the cash reserve as part of a budgeting conversation.
Yeah, one last question. Does the interest rate change whether we go from 20 million to 30 million?
No,
the spread?
It should not.
Okay. Any last questions?
Call the question.
I will call the question on the motion to suspend the 3 readings rule. This again requires 7 yes votes to pass. Sky?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
And I vote no. The motion passes 7-1. Next, the chair moves to hold a vote to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of the Columbia Association debt dated May 19th, 2023. Can I get a second?
Second.
A second by Keith. Any further discussion on raising the line of credit? Seeing none, I will call the question. I'll do it backwards. Keith?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
I vote no. The motion passes 7-1. Next, we have the board discussion appointment of members of the board of directors to the RP Evaluation Committee. We've had, there was a call out to board members, and we've got 3 volunteers. The people that volunteered were Karen, Reg, and Lynn. So seeing no other volunteers.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this what's going to take place in September where we have?
No, this is what takes place now to actually issue the RFP to pick a agency.
So,
Can I search from? Yes. Can I get a motion to appoint Lynn, Reg, and Karen to the committee?
Second.
Keith moves. Ellen seconds. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objections, the motion passes. Next, we have the information session on the customer relation management system for 15 minutes.
Stan. Okay, while we're waiting for Drew. Dennis asked me to speak on a customer relationship management system.
Drew and I were actually joking earlier. This is a topic where it either takes 5 minutes or 5 hours. There's no in the middle on this.
Could you do 15 minutes?
So taking the cue from the last meeting, I flipped a coin to see which one we were going to do. And in helping my boy Keith out here, we decided that we're going to go with the short version.
All right.
Okay.
We'll do a very high-level brief overview on what a customer management relation system is, and a little bit about how we use it here at CA. Awesome.
And this is just for our information. You're not asking for anything from us.
I couldn't answer a question if you wanted me to. I'm kidding, I could, but we're not going to.
So to be clear, the idea is it's information only. If questions come out of it, they'd be submitted in writing at a later date so that we can keep these to a 15-minute time frame.
Got it.
So a CRM, if you've heard it, Salesforce is a big one that you see all over the place. It's customer relationship management system. And it's really a strategy of how an organization works with their customers, and it typically refers to a particular product or suite of products that does that. You may also hear member management system, which is a little bit more of what we have in MRM because we do more member type stuff, as well as sometimes Salesforce sales, an SRM, a sales relationship management system. And most CRMs have a combination of all of them, although the member piece is a little different. So what that looks like is a suite of products that handle a lot of different aspects of the business. The web experience, the e-commerce and point of sale, social media, customer intelligence, customer service management tools, marketing management suite. So all the different things an organization would use to communicate with, to support their members and their customers, or to generate new ones, is really what's rolled into a CRM. The benefits of a CRM: increased customer satisfaction. You're looking for ways of delivering information or services to a customer or helping them find the products that they want. Improved customer service and support. By having a CRM, you have a lot of a customer's member journey or customer journey available to you to be able to support their needs. Enhance customer loyalty. Again, through the web experience, through the management, you're providing services and opportunities for those customers or members to make their experience better. Ability to meet the customer's needs. Again, same thing. When you know what the customers are purchasing or what they're looking for, more people have access to that and can deliver that. Improved quality of communication. By having all this information in a singular system, more people have access to it, and therefore the customer journey is more clear across the organization, and so more team members are able to service that particular person. Point of sale system, in our case, we largely and strongly, and I'll talk about this in a second, use it as a point of sale system, as well as in our case, we use it as a billing and financial system as well. The true benefits of a CRM, organizations that have implemented a CRM see a 13% greater success than organizations that don't. Again, it's connecting all of those pieces together and allowing the team members to really support the member or the customer across that journey. And significantly improved retention rates. Our retention rate, and I'll just talk a little bit for a second about us, has a lot more to do with the CRM, but the team leverages the CRM heavily. Our attrition rate is about 24% annualized. In the industry, it's about 40% across the board. We are significantly ahead of the industry rate, and the CRM plays a large part of that in how it allows the team to service our members. And
Talking sports and fitness, gyms, that's
memberships, yeah. So there are typically three different types of CRMs. The first is a collaborative. This breaks down the silos, as I said a little bit earlier, and allows the different teams to see the different pieces of information, to leverage them to be able to better service our members, our customers, our future customers, or the customer care team, again, to see all the information about those individuals to better support them. Ensure all teams have access to the same data, again, same principle. Keith and I are working off the same information. If I'm at the Supreme Sports Club and Keith is over at the ice rink and Karen comes in, we both know everything about her, so we know what her preferences are and what she likes and what she doesn't like. You ice skate. You play tennis. You were at the tennis. So that again, that information and making the member or customer feel like they're part of CA, because we all know and can address them on the same level. And again, on the same principle, it treats interaction as part of a larger global conversation, i.e. going to the ice rink is not different than going to Supreme Sports Club. You're going to CA because we have all the information and we can address Reg and Lynn as Reg and Lynn no matter where they're coming in. So it allows that universality. The second type is an analytical. This provides the tools to collect customer and member data, which we have a lot of. Provide, if possible, tools to analyze the data and provide operational insights. And in the bubbles we showed earlier on some of the marketing stuff, you can see what marketing campaigns work, how we're reaching people, what drives new members to continue to grow the business and increase our market penetration. The third type is operational. And this streamlines the process for managing our customer and member relations. This is the team in the field really using this to support our members in our members and our customers in their journey. Again, and I've said this in a few different ways, but provides a full insight to their journey. I know Karen was playing tennis, and I know she was at the ice rink, and I know she was at Supreme. So I get an idea of what she's doing, what she's interested in, and how we can better help serve her.
Does this include like the apps that the members use under operational? Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes they provide automation features, and in our case, it provides our member billing. That is a big piece of what we do. So what do we have? Some of you have been on the board for a little while, have heard the acronym SNG. When we talk about getting a report or where the information is housed, stands for Spectrum Next Generation. Sounds like a little Star Trek thing there, but it's not. But we just refer to the acronym SNG. We've had SNG for about 12 years, and so it's a little bit older than that. But SNG provides a combination of operational and collaborative CRMs. A little bit of analytical. It provides the data, but it doesn't do anything with it. We can get it. We have to analyze it, and I will just say that I'll get back to that in a second. It is what if you're interacting with any of our facilities where you purchase something, check in, register for a class through the website, through the app, you're dealing with SNG. That's the key touch point of all of our member transactions. And again, I can't say it enough. It's where we do our billing. That is a major feature of it and necessity for the organization. So going back to the bubbles we had earlier, this is just the little bit of an overview of how SNG handles what we do. I've added a bubble, so we'll start in the top upper right hand with the membership billing, that green bubble. That wasn't on the first slide. This is more, since we use it really as an MRM, membership billing as a primary component, and that's really what it was designed to do, and that's a very strong feature of it. Opposite that is the other green bubble, which is a customer service management tool, which our customer care team and all the teams in the field use it to service our customers and members and help support their journey. Then we can swing around to the very bottom one. We'll start going around the customer intelligence platform. This is where it's yellow because we have the data, but SNG doesn't do anything with it. We have to do everything with it. And I will just, this is what I was going to say a second ago, I'll give kudos to our IT team. Particularly Mike Schramm has developed a ton of dashboards pulling information out of the data that's available to provide that business intelligence to the team. So again, a collaborative effort, everybody working together, leveraging the CRM to enable the team to deliver to our customers and members. The social media management platform, and across that, the marketing management platform, those are red. SNG doesn't do that. It provides information on who's in the system, guests and members, but Tim, who was here earlier, Tim and his team take that information and leverage that in platforms outside of Pardot and different services outside of the true CRM. So it's a bubble, but it's not part of SNG. Then the other two yellow bubbles, e-commerce and point of sale. SNG is not real great with e-commerce because when SNG was built, e-commerce really wasn't a thing. So it's a bit of a struggle, and we've all experienced that on the website. We have a lot of plugins and things to make that work, but it's a pretty tremendous point of sale system and pretty flexible, and that's used for all of our point of sale transactions. And then again, the web experience, it doesn't do much there. That's handled by Tim's team, Matt and Sam, delivering the web experience. SNG doesn't play a lot into that. We kind of make it. But again, the web wasn't a thing really when when the stack was built and created. But that, in a nutshell, is CRM, what we have and how we use it.
So we're not looking to replace it?
Eventually we will.
Eventually, but that's not what this pitch was about.
No.
Any further questions? I've got couple questions. How much does something like this cost?
There's a monthly fee.
So if I could break in. So one of my jobs is to get to you all the remarkable information staff does. And I'm worried that if we spend more like half an hour, we start asking questions in this venue, then you'll say, don't bring people to you. So if I would ask that if you could hold questions and we'll get them out to everyone, put them in the system. We'll make sure every question gets answered. But the idea is to get as many people as possible in front of you for short little snippets of what it is that makes CA so remarkable.
Okay. So we'll not have any questions on this. So that brings us to, ironically, questions only. So you can ask questions on anything regarding the President's Report or the IAT.
Okay.
That's just the order of the agenda.
So the other thing I'd like to say is that this group really focuses on the big picture, but there's a lot of people that watch these, a lot of staff members, and there are hundreds now and soon to be 1,000 people operating behind the scenes, cutting grass, picking up weeds, lifeguarding the pools, cleaning restrooms, all the things that happen behind the scenes that no one here sees, except they watch you. A lot of them watch you. So it's really important, the words we say, and we recognize the hard work that those team members do. For example, today I was at the points system soiree at the sports park, and Dan's group runs that. And I mean, we had team members from across the association working with the points kids and running a really incredible program. I'm not sure how many of you got a chance to go out there. And I would close by saying, when I was in community operations, I had this like one side that I thought was, man, it was the most incredible thing in the organization. Now I've seen kind of Dan's side and what Susan does and what happens in the office. And there are just so many remarkable things that I'd like us to say thank you more to the team members and recognize that they are listening and the hard work that they do is important to our success.
Thank you. Helen?
Yeah, I really like hearing about what people do. I've always liked that. My only, and this is just a comment, we don't need time to discuss it, is I'd like us as a board.
Could you speak closer?
Oh, sorry. I'd like us as a board to really think about whether these things belong in meetings or whether they belong in work sessions, and I'd hate to have us shorten. We always talk about how we don't have enough time. So I just want to make sure we're conscious of that. So I think it's important, but I don't want to preempt things. This is not about your report specifically, but I would like at some point, I don't expect you to have an answer right now, but I would love to have an answer to the 3 questions that were posed by Sue Bannister.
So we've got Scott Petrie coming in, right? We've got that scheduled, so that's on the agenda. So I would ask that we'll probably do that at that time.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I guess as a remark and, Susan's commentary and what you just talked about in terms of, I would love to see, or I guess I could put it in the phrase of a question, can we have a specific conversation at the board education around how we want to do this? How do we want to engage staff in a way that's meaningful and that recognizes, because the last thing that we want to do, well, I don't have to go further, but I just want to ask, is it possible for us to include that in the agenda for education and just guidance governance?
Yes.
Or possibly topics for, say, a retreat.
With Griff.
Yep. Any further questions? Okay, that brings us to proposed new topics. Any proposed new topics?
So I guess the one of the questions I have about the agenda and proposed new topics is, we approve the agenda, so in theory we can change the agenda, but then at the end we have another place where we say proposed new topics.
So proposed new topics are not obviously for this meeting, but they're for future meetings. So basically we have a topics log, which I have somewhere.
Okay.
And
I understand.
we can propose topics to go on the topics log. That would go to the BOC. BOC considers the topics log and they could add them onto future agendas. So that's sort of the way topics get added to the agendas.
But it's also possible.
There's other avenues also.
Decide this is an important.
That's not the only avenue. There are multiple avenues. That's one potential avenue. But there are other avenues, and I'm not going to get into all of them. Any other proposed new topics or questions? That brings us to chair remarks. I know it's been a long day for a lot of you. We started pretty early this morning. Not this morning, but early this afternoon, and we had the 30 meeting, so I'd like to thank you all for attending. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, any objections to adjourning? Meeting is adjourned at 9:42. And the motion, for the record, the motion was made by Reg and seconded by Alan. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.